Hello and welcome to the Merle and Locke podcast. I'm Merle.
I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shameful, helping and pointless banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge.
And more.
And more. Now we're going to go on to Hallowfall. I know, everyone's probably tired of World of Warcraft
World
at this
of
point.
Warcraft again.
I know, but we said we were going to do zone to zone to zone to zone in this new expansion, The War Within, because we've been enjoying it so much. We've been grinding away at it, and we've gotten through this new zone called Hallowfall.
And I've been fighting with you to try to get this done, where I'm like, we gotta get through Hallowfall. Come on, let's stop playing other games.
I know.
We have to do the story, man.
We're making progress. We're doing well, I think. So the whole setup for Hallowfall, right? It's pretty interesting, I think, where we're sitting there in the Ringing Deeps and we keep hearing about these Arathi, right? And Edward's thinking, he's like, Arathi? Underground?
I've only heard about them in legends. There's no way they're underground.
This is so odd. What are you earthen talking about? And they have like accommodations for humans and what have you, and everything's pointed like, oh, maybe this is a thing. This is so weird. And Anduin says, all right, meet me in this next zone, and we're gonna go check it out for ourselves and see what's happening out that way. We follow Anduin. And we get to this new zone called Hallowfall. As soon as we get in, what's the first thing we see?
There's a giant ass light crystal in the sky.
Exactly. Okay, now, my initial thoughts on this, when I saw that giant crystal in the sky, I was like, oh, it's Sargeras' sword. Right? That was my first reaction.
That's what I thought when I saw the concept art, like when they were showing around concept arts for how places looked. I thought that was the tip of Sargeras' sword, but it's not.
It's just a giant crystal that gives off light in this big zone. And it's really neat. It's a really neat concept because it's kind of like, reminiscent of obviously being on the surface and having the sun. It's a really bright crystal. We go in and we meet some Arathi, try to get a gauge on like how they got here and what's their culture like, and trying to wrap our heads around this and what's happening. This in itself opens up whole new possibilities as to how big Azeroth is and how many continents there are that we have no idea about, right? Because there's an Arathi Empire somewhere in the world of Warcraft that we still haven't seen. We haven't seen this thing yet. So the Arathi are from the Vrykul, having the Curse of Flesh. So all the humans in the world of Warcraft are descendants of the Vrykuls, the Arathi. And at some point during the expansion of these Arathi, there was a big group of them that split off and made another kingdom elsewhere. And this is when we start learning about it, because it was unknown to us until this point that there was another empire somewhere in the world. Now, we hear a lot about this emperor that they often refer to, who has this closeness to the light. We're told that he receives visions. He tries to prevent the encroaching darkness with these visions, and they, constant battles and what have you. And so he's kind of reminiscent of Prophet Velen, I think. Like the way they describe him, it kind of seems that way. So when they tell us how they got to this place, so it wasn't too terribly long ago that they had gotten here. The Emperor had a vision, right, of this big battle that they have in their lore called Renalash, where it's the final battle between light and dark. So the Emperor, he gathered his army, or an army, and sent them off on this crusade of sorts to fight back the encroaching darkness. I don't know exactly how it happened, but they said while they were trying to go to this point in which the Emperor had led them, which the Emperor is not with them, by the way, so we haven't actually met the Emperor, But he sent them off, and they were met with like this blinding light that had transported them. The transport didn't go too well. A whole bunch of their ships crashed, and they almost completely lost this holy fire.
It's their sacred thing.
Yeah, when they crashed, they almost lost the fire completely. But it was saved by somebody, like a little girl that stowed away on their ships. She saved an ember somehow at the cost of her
arm and sight. Well, her one eye.
Yeah. So this little girl that had stowed away on the ships to try and escape her family because I don't know, looked down upon, I guess, by her family, and so she ran away from home and she stowed away on these ships to, have an adventure of sorts. And when they were met by this catastrophe, she did her best to save the last embers of that holy flame. That little girl is held in such high regard, but we'll get back to her. When they crashed their ships, something interesting happened because there's a whole question of why can't these guys go home, right? Why can't they return to their empire? Apparently, it seems that all their mages were killed during that transport.
It's a big old conspiracy.
So, like, their mages were killed, so the ability to build portals to go back home was no longer because, all those mages had died. And in the story, as we're venturing through Hallowfall, we do find another mage who's trying to learn how to make portals.
Was that actually a part of the story, or was that a side mission? I can't remember at this point.
I don't remember, but he was almost successful in building a portal back to the Empire. Some things went wrong. I won't give any spoilers on this one, but things didn't turn out so great. And
blood, guts everywhere.
Yeah, there's blood everywhere.
It was like Tarzan, the movie at the beginning with the parents' blood everywhere. That's it. That's what we saw.
Yeah, that's what we saw. Okay, so they're not able to get back home, so they're stuck here trying to fight this battle with no reinforcements, and obviously they're trying to make trade between themselves and the Earthen and what have you, which is something that you go into later on to try and open up trade again to build up relationships between the Earthen and the Arathi again. One thing that we see pretty early on as we get there, that the crystal, it turns purple.
It changes colors.
Yeah, so it darkens. It darkens,
yes.
Right?
That's your symbolism of the dark is coming.
And when it darkens, all the Nerubians that we've come to know and love, they kind of flood Hallowfall when that crystal darkens. We learn that it wasn't always that way. The crystal didn't always darken, but they had this event after they had gotten to Hallowfall and they built up their civilization, and people had families and their farms, everything was going great. They were met with this day of darkness. When we hear about that day of darkness, we kind of put the clues together and we realize that day of darkness happened
the same day Sargeras plunged his sword into Azeroth.
Exactly. We don't know exactly why that happened. There's a belief that it has something to do with the blood of the old gods being released upon Sargeras plunging his sword into the world. But we don't know for certain. It's just speculation at this point as to why it darkened the crystal. But so it's intermittent as to when it happens. So we have these group of warriors that they call the Lamplighters. That's it. So they have these Lamplighters that fight the Nerubians that flood the zone on these days of darkness. To push back the darkness, they made these towers. They call them the Dawn Towers. And they're pretty much these lighthouses of sorts with this holy flame placed at strategic points all around Hallowfall, to try and ward off the darkness and protect the locals from it. And it's pretty much like during the summer and you're hanging out outside with your buddies, and it's getting dark out, and then all the mosquitoes and stuff start coming out, and so you light some tiki torches to ward off all the bugs.
Right.
It's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. The dawn towers are giant tiki torches that ward off all the Nerubian bugs.
Makes sense to me.
So after we find out all of this, we don't want to go too much into the story itself as to like what all happens while you're there. But, I mean, we know Xalatath is trying to mess up everything. And what is she trying to mess up here in Hallowfall?
Is she, or is she just trying to create chaos?
I mean, that could very well be.
We're also going to have to deal with her for the whole rest of the saga, judging by what was said in interviews. Either that or, she does have this plan and we're just going to stop her, and then she's going to come back and have another plan, and then we're going to stop her.
So what we deal with specifically down here is, the corruption of the light. So Xalatath is trying to, her followers more specifically. Some Arathi, they've become corrupted. They're pushing out these ideals, saying to embrace the darkness, and Xalatath will protect us.
You guys have been blinded by the light. Blinded by the... That...
So the main antagonist that we deal with is this guy called Eric Lead, a follower of Xalatath and, a corrupted Arathi, and he's trying to snuff out the light of the Dawn Towers and Belladar itself, which Belladar is the name of that giant crystal that's in the sky. They have a name for it. I guess I forgot to mention the name of it earlier.
Thank you for clarifying.
So that's the main antagonist that we're trying to fight, and we're trying to fight his recruits, his followers, all the while being constantly swarmed by Nerubians, Kobies as well.
Kobies? Yeah, they're actually Kobus. But
they're called Kobus, but when we read it initially, we weren't savvy to the pronunciation of the name, so we called it Kobies, and we were doing every time we were voice acting for each character. Every time we would say Kobies, the other person would be like Kobies, rest in peace, Kobe. But it was kind of an inside joke we were doing.
Yeah.
We thought it was funny.
Probably in poor taste.
Yeah. But so that's what you're dealing with there. Now, I want to get into like some interesting things or some fond memories you have of this expansion before we dip out, because I don't want to spoil too much of the story. I just want to get into some favorite parts or some key characters that we really enjoyed. I know we were speaking of that little girl that had snuck aboard the Empire's fleet and then saved that Ember. How about we go into that person and what role they play?
I feel that you've actually grown rather fond of her now at this point, and I feel it's in part said to be related to Lothar. Us knowing who Lothar is, somebody who's just kind of been a myth, I feel like a lot of people were just like, oh yeah, Lothar, this is what we think of him. I forget what his full-on story was.
He's just this legendary character that we hear so much about, and now we're met by this woman
who claims to be a Lothar.
Yeah, her name is Feyrin Lothar. Right from the get-go, we're just like, wait, what?
But
how?
The shock in our voices as we're both finding out same time. Huh? What?
Yeah.
And Anduin, to no surprise at all, goes, what? I'm named after him.
And she has no idea, obviously, because she's like, "Oh, that's crazy." I mean, I come from a simple trading family or whatever, or something like that. Like her family is rather simple back home, but she's like, I may be related to this legendary general of the Alliance armies in this this old world or whatever they call the Eastern Kingdoms. But we don't get much more than that, other than like all we're filled with all these questions as to like how that name, the Lothar name, had carried over to this empire that we've never heard of before, but exists somewhere in the world.
I couldn't help but think about, wow, how crazy it is that two runaway royal kids are out gallivanting together, and Anduin still being a little crybaby and trying to figure out if he likes to be in the dark or the light. He goes, I just killed a bunch of people, and you know what? I kind of liked it, but I shouldn't. I should.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
But anyway, I do love that part of what we've experienced in Hallowfall, but I do want to talk about this little girl before we even wrap it up. After we're introduced to the orphanage that this girl was raised in, this Lothar, we go to this orphanage. We meet this little girl. She has been traumatized by these events that had happened. I want to say traumatized. Maybe not. She might have lost her mind. But we love her. We cherish this little creature, and I want to see more of this little creature in the expansion.
Yeah, what was her name? Was it Eliza?
Yes, I believe so. But anyway, she goes, help me go find my teddy. A bunch of Kobe's have killed my parents, so now she is seeking vengeance. We get this teddy bear, and she goes, alright, now we're gonna kill the Kobe's. During my whole voice acting for it, I couldn't help but just imagine this hee kinda, having a whole lot of fun here, but we're gonna kill him. And yeah. She just deepens her voice the minute that she starts talking about murdering all of them.
It's very precious. I enjoyed every minute of that quest line, because like just like how happy-go-lucky she was, and then just switched to darkness. Vengeance will be mine.
Kill that stupid fish head. It's like, Jesus, alright. Like, how old are you? 5?
Oh, man. Yeah, like the whole time we were looking for little items of hers, it was like stuff that
belonged to her parents.
Yeah, like her father was a guard of sorts or something, and we have found his helmet and his sword, and she was wearing his big old helmet and carrying that big sword, and she's like, let's kill these Kobe's.
She's wearing this oversized helmet, and she's just swinging this little sword around. Well, I mean, little to us, but it was a big sword for her. And she's just swinging it around, and I'm like, that is adorable. I want 5 of you. Just... I already play as a character that's like the ultimate babysitter, from what I've been told. So he wants to keep this child and just make sure she's okay.
The whole story of Hallowfall was very compelling, and it was a great storyline told. But my absolute favorite out of everything that happened in Hallowfall was that quest line with Eliza. That was amazing. It was so funny. We got an absolute kick out of it. So we won't spoil too much of that any further. But after we had completed everything in Hallowfall and fought off the forces of darkness and Zalatath's little Arathi army that she had made, we're then dragged into a new zone as Kahet, where we're delving deeper and deeper still into Nerubian territory,
where we're gonna make friends with some Nerubians, apparently.
Yeah, we got a whole lot ahead of us. At some point, we'll fill you in on what happens there. But until then,
maybe we'll become spiders someday.
Maybe. You never know. Thank you for joining us on the Merlin Lock podcast. If you enjoyed this banter, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/merlandlock, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.